Hello my friends and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be talking about the criteria that you might want to use and the criteria that I am going to use when choosing a main character for an expansion in World of Warcraft. Specifically, we're talking about moving from Legion into Battle for Azeroth, but these criteria should be able to apply to some extent or another to any expansion in the future, barring some unbelievably drastic changes to the game that I can't even really picture. These should help you decide at some point in the future whether you want to be a warrior or a shaman or a druid or a mage or whatever class you're looking into. Hopefully these criteria can help you make that decision. As we're getting started, if you have liked the content that I've been putting out over the last couple of weeks, please consider giving us a subscribe on the channel. It really helps us out. And without further ado, let's get right into it. So what are the criteria that I am using? These are in no particular order, but I am going to list the first one first that I think, the first one first, obviously. I'm going to start with the one that I think is most important, and that is the question of, do I enjoy the gameplay that this spec has to offer? If the answer to that is no, if the answer is, I really don't like playing this class, I just don't enjoy the mechanics of this class, or I don't enjoy the roles that it has available, well, then that should be a non-starter. That should be an easy way for you to go through and eliminate some of the classes, unless you like all the classes. And if you do, then more power to you. But I think most people probably don't. And that's a good place, as good a place as any to start. Sorry, we're gonna get a lot of lag in here. So, do you enjoy the gameplay that the class has to offer that you're considering? If you don't, then I would strongly suggest moving on to another class. A second question that's somewhat related and may not be an important criteria for everyone. I know it's an important criteria for me, so I'm going to go with it. Is, do I enjoy, or am I willing to some extent to play all of the specs that this class has to offer, or at least 2 out of 3, right? At least most of the specs that we've got on the table here. Do I enjoy them, and am I willing to play them? I think that's an important question to ask, because if you find yourself in a situation where you've chosen a class as your main that you only like one spec, and then that spec is just not performing well, or even worst case scenario, there are changes made to that spec and you no longer enjoy playing it, which does happen, believe it or not, then you kind of put yourself into an unfortunate situation where you might have to re-roll in the middle of an expansion. So I would say choose a class that has multiple specs that you enjoy. Preferably, if you can find one where you enjoy all of the specs that are available, that would be perfect. But, understanding that's not always going to be the case. These are just important things that I think you should consider. So, do you enjoy the gameplay of the class? That includes things like mechanics, the different ways that your class does things. And second, do you enjoy at least multiple specs, preferably all of the specs? That's the question that I try to stick with, is, if I get stuck playing one spec, am I going to be okay with that? And I think the answer should be yes. Another important and related consideration is, do I enjoy all of the roles that this class is able to fulfill? So if you're considering playing an elemental shaman as your main character, but you can't stand healing, are you going to be okay with being asked to heal? Are you okay with saying no? Is your group okay with you saying no to that request? Or is that something that, at the level that you're playing, you're going to get benched over? These are things that you have to consider when you're looking for a main character, for a main class. Do I, And the answer to that question, I want to state very clearly, is going to be different for different people, right? Some people, it's not going to matter. You know, you can be just an elemental shaman, and that's fine, and that's great. If you're in a situation where you can do that, where you can get away with that, that is great. That is a fine way to play the game. But for some people, they're either not wired that way, or they're in a guild that is going to require them to play a more competitive spec. And that's just a consideration that you have to make. So do you enjoy the gameplay? Do you enjoy the specs? Do you enjoy the roles that your class can fulfill? And then the next thing that I would consider is, do you enjoy playing the class that you're considering playing in all of the different areas of the game that you want to play? So let's use the example of a rogue. There are a lot of people who love playing a rogue in PvP because you can get the jump on people. You have a lot of tools that allow you to get away, like this guy's trying to right here. And you're just a very powerful class. Your skill set is very specific to PvP. But a lot of people who love playing a rogue in PvP don't like raiding on a rogue. Well, if raiding is a main activity that you're committed to in the game, then maybe you want to pick a class for your main that you enjoy raiding on. These are just things that you might want to consider. Now, you know, maybe you enjoy playing the same character, the same class in all of these different aspects of the game, and that's great. That's a good position to be in. Then you've got, you know, a very strong contender for a good main character, a good main spec. Another thing that you want to consider is, are there things that you want to do in WoW that the class you're considering is just unable to do? So think about it this way. If you know that you really like tanking and you're going to have that itch to tank at some point in the expansion, then you should be picking, then you may want to pick, let me rephrase that, you may want to pick a character that has tank specs available. Now, as a related secondary question to this, you might want to ask yourself, am I willing to do those things that I want to do on an alt character? Right? So maybe, you know, maybe you have that really strong desire to tank, but you're okay with having an alt that you tank on when you want to tank some dungeons or some alt raids or whatever. Again, these are just questions that you need to be considering as we're moving into an expansion and as you're looking to choose the character that you're going to be spending the most of your time on, at least for, you know, the first patch cycle, at least for the first few months. This is going to be, for a while, probably your only character that's at max level, the only character that you're going to be making serious advanced progression on. And, you know, if you know that a couple of times a week you just really want to go and heal something, but your main character is a mage, well, that's going to be a point of frustration for you. Or it could be. I know for me, if I'm playing a class that can't tank and I don't have a character available that can tank, I'm going to get frustrated. Now, that doesn't mean that I won't pick a class that can't tank as a main character. It does mean that I am aware of that when I'm making a decision, and I know what I'm getting myself into. So are there things that, again, that question was, are there things that you might want to do on this character that you're not going to be able to do because of the spec limitations, because of the different roles that you're able to fulfill? And then as a follow-up to that, which we talked about, is, are you okay with playing alts to do those different activities? Those are questions that I think most people should be considering. Now, this last one is either going to be a very important criteria for people or not at all an important criteria. And that is personal history with this character. Now, as you can probably see, if I zoom in a little bit here around my weak auras, one of the things that I have on my shaman that keeps me coming back to my shaman even when I'm not particularly fond of the changes that are being made to it is I have the challenge mode armor set. Now, I haven't actually mained my shaman since Mists of Pandaria and Siege of Orgrimmar. Oh, I'm totally dead here. But I have maintained it as an alt at least because I have some unique things on this character that I don't have on other characters, and that's something to consider. Maybe a Legion application would be, you know, if you don't have all of the Mage Tower artifact skins unlocked, do you have the ones for this class that you're considering? Or do you want to play a class where you have them all unlocked and you like them all because that's something that's fun to have and that can be cool to show off? These are questions that you should be asking, considering, weighing, and, you know, the different order that you prioritize these in is going to be different from individual to individual, but these are just the questions that I think we should be asking ourselves and looking into, and these are, I think, most of the criteria that I'm going to be using heading into Battle for Azeroth. There's one more that I want to talk about, and that's a little more of a specific scenario, but that question is, is there a role in the group that I play with that we need filled that I can fulfill? And does this character fulfill it? Now, you know, if you're in a raiding guild and there's a tank spot open, you are not necessarily required to fill that, right? But if you can fill that, and you're interested in filling that, and you want to fill that, and you've been asked to fill that, then you should be picking a character that you can tank on, and that you're going to enjoy tanking on, right? You obviously can't tank on a priest, to use an example. So that's, I would say, a smaller criteria, but it could be an important criteria as well. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. As I mentioned earlier, if you could just give us a like, comment, and subscribe if you made it this far into the video, if you've been enjoying this content, if you've been enjoying all of these chain lightnings, all of these spec previews. We're going to keep those coming. I just wanted to give something a little bit different tonight because we are getting a little bit closer to Battle for Azeroth, and I think it's time, you know, not just to watch videos where people are demonstrating things with different classes, but to start deciding for yourself, what class do I want to play in Battle for Azeroth, and what spec do I want to play, and start preparing that character for the coming expansion. Thanks guys, hope you all have a great day tomorrow and rest of your days as well. Bye bye.